check. Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Inook. I was born in South Korea, and I came to Woodstock when I was in grade 6. So I didn't really get to experience a lot of Korean culture myself. So when I went home this time for break, it was really fascinating for me to find out how this culture that I picked up from Woodstock really transformed my understanding and view of education compared to my other friends in Korea. That's why for this year, I decided to give a presentation on impact of history and culture on education. I hope you enjoy. Okay. So just to start off with, I'll be talking about West and East and just a general overview of their cultural difference. So when I refer to West, I'm talking about Europe mainly, and when I'm talking about East, I'm talking to countries such as China, Japan, South Korea, just to clarify. So, okay. So when people normally talk about Western education, Western culture, they normally go back to ancient Greece. And when they talk about Eastern culture, they normally go back to ancient China. So from ancient Greece, we have Socrates, and from ancient China, we have Confucius. And they talked about two different things. Socrates talked about questioning and self-questioning. There's actually a method of learning called Socratic questioning, which is just basically about asking questions to yourself and to other people to form a more sophisticated understanding of a certain topic. And Confucius talked about in the East, he talked about building relationships within a family and within a community. So for instance, a daughter and a son, they're supposed to respect their parents, and the parents are supposed to return love and care for them. And because of these ideas, the idea of individualism prospered in the West, whereas the idea of collectivism prospered in the East. Okay, so if I ask these questions to a bunch of Western people and a bunch of Eastern people, how do you think they're going to reply? Can you introduce yourself to me? If you ask this question to Western people, they'll say something like this. Hello, my name is David. I like to play football. I like watching movies. I play the guitar. However, if you ask the same questions to people in the East, they'll say something like this. Hello, my name is Mulan. My grandma makes really good dumplings. My dad works really hard for the family. And my sister just annoys the crap out of me every single day, right? So I hope you're seeing the difference here. In the West, your individual skills define who you are as a person. However, in the East, your family is part of your identity. Okay, now there was an experiment done by a professor in the University of British Columbia. So what happened was that they just got a bunch of Western students and a bunch of Eastern students. And they gave them creativity tests, and they made them take it. And after they were done taking it, they just grabbed some Western students and some Eastern students, and they told them that you got a lower score than other students. Their response was quite significantly different. Western student, they just didn't bother looking at it. Who cares? I got a bad score on it. But the Eastern students, they actually went through the test really carefully to see what they got wrong. However, when they actually, when they're told that you got a higher score than other students, Western students, they went through the test a lot more carefully to see how they did. And Eastern students, they just who cares? I got a better score than a lot of you, so I don't really, care about this, right? So because of this difference, in the West, you can see that they're focused more on individual learning and individual achievement. However, in the East, their society is based more on competition and community pressure. Okay, so now I'm done talking about this general difference between West and East. So I want to get more specific. So I chose the Netherlands to represent Western education, and I chose South Korea to represent Eastern education. Just remember throughout the whole presentation, West for individualism and East for collectivism. Okay, because of this difference, there is a difference in their motivation. Students in the West, they get motivated to study because they want to study one area that they can do the best at. However, students in South Korea, they want to study because they want to make their parents proud. So their individual motivation for education is very different. even their government motivation for education is quite significantly different. If you look at the government in the Netherlands, they want to produce people that are not afraid of asking questions, and they want to produce innovative people through education. However, the government in South Korea, they want to produce people that can work together towards the same goal, and just who can work together as a nation. Okay, so like how do I know these? Like in order to understand this motivation, you need to understand the history of it. So let's just start with South Korean history. So after the Korean War, like South Korea was quite poor. Like their GDP per capita was only $64, and during the 1960s, like economically they're like way behind DRC. So Korea was quite poor. However, Korea right now is a part of OECD's Development Assistance Committee, which is a committee that helps developing countries, along with countries such as Australia, countries in the EU, Japan, US, Canada. And Korea right now has the 13th highest GDP in the world. So like Korea experienced a pretty fast economic boom. So like there's a lot of factors that led to this, but if I have to pick one factor, it's gonna be this guy, Mr. Park. He was the president of South Korea during the 1960s. I mean, there's a lot of controversy about this guy, how he was like trying to turn himself into a dictator, but that's not the question that I want to get into. It is unquestionable that he actually made Korea into a pretty economically stable country. So he had a 5-year plan, but that's not really important. I'm not going to talk about it because it doesn't really matter. So if you just look through the 5-year plans that he came up with, he just needed one thing. He needed everyone to work together as a nation towards the same goals. I mean, that's what he wanted to do. So for him, what was important was teamwork. Teamwork was the main, it's a key term here. And by working together as a country, Korea saw really fast economic growth, and the government is still obsessed with this idea. The government still wants to create people that can work together towards the same goal. That's why if you look at the Korean education system right now, it's very inflexible, it's tightly scheduled, and it's based on a lot of efficiency. For instance, if you want to learn AP macroeconomics, AP Euro, AP statistics, if you just go to Korea and if you just find a place, you can learn the whole course in like less than 2 weeks. It's based on efficiency, right? So the picture on the left is a traditional Korean classroom. And the picture on the right is a traditional textile company during the industrialization period, which was based a lot on efficiency. I'm pretty sure you can see some sort of like connection there. This kind of education leads to convergent thinking, which I will come back to it later. So just remember South Korea for convergent thinking. Okay, now I want to talk about the Netherlands. The Netherlands saw its golden age during the 17th century, mainly through trading. So like for them to trade, like talking was very important. Expressing their opinions was quite important. And they experienced a quite fast economic boom because of their innovation. They're the first country to have a bank in the world, and they built a ship which was really fast and really mobile so that they could move really fast on water. And they built a lot of like warehouses around the countries, right? So innovation is a key term here. Because of innovation, they could experience this fast economic growth, innovation. And because of this idea of innovation, the Dutch government is still very obsessed with this idea of innovation. They want to create an education which is really flexible, individualized, and based on asking questions. It's based on this because why? The government wants people to have innovative ideas. They want people to have individualized understanding of different topics because this is how they saw their economic boom. So if you see a traditional Dutch classroom setting, this is how it is. It's quite different from the Korean one. And I hope you can, I don't have to explain this, quite simple to understand. So this type of education leads to divergent thinking. I'm not trying to explain like Korean education system is better, or like Dutch education system is better, or divergent thinking system is better, or like convergent thinking system is better. Convergent thinking has its own advantage. When you use convergent thinking, use analyzing, judging, eliminating, and selecting. So by using these, you get to draw conclusions quite easily, and you get to select the best ideas. And because of this kind of characteristic, Korea ranks pretty high, like in the international testing. They are ranked #1 in the math section. They're ranked number 2 in science section, reading section, and then ranked number 4 in science section. But now let's look at divergent thinking. Divergent thinking is very closely linked to creativity because divergent thinking helps you produce ideas. And for divergent thinking, quality of idea doesn't really matter. It's more about quantity. And this is a type of thinking and education that the Netherlands tries to impose. Because of this, Netherlands was ranked number 6 most creative country in the world, which is a pretty good reach, I believe. So what I want to say from this presentation is it's quite simple. I'm trying to say that history and culture leads to a specific type of education. And that type of education, and people that got produced because of that kind of education, they go back to that history and culture, and they produce the same type of education. Let me just give you an example. Confucianism happened in Korea like really long time ago. Really long time ago. However, the idea of respecting elders is still there. Why? Because there was education. Education that made the idea just keep going. And so like one question that I want to leave with all of you before I close my presentation is, do you believe that in this 21st century of globalization, do you feel like this cycle is going to get ruined, or do you feel like this cycle is going to just be kept as how it is right now? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Inook. Are there any audience questions?
Who's going first?
Inook, I'd like to know how, you asked at the end of your presentation the question that I had in my mind, and I'd like to know how you answer that question.
Okay. I mean, some people say that education and knowledge gives individuality to people because it gives some potential and some skills for you to think about different things. However, if you look at it from a holistic view, you can actually pick out Dutch people, Korean people, American people, because education shapes them in a way. However, in this 21st century, globalization is there, everyone is sharing their cultures. So in a way, their cultures are going to get mixed up, right? So what I think and what I believe is that maybe in a few decades, or maybe more than that, because it takes a lot of time for history and for culture to get built up. So what I believe is that there's going to be a huge, just gigantic cycle, just one, not like many cycles, just like one gigantic cycle in this place. Yeah.
So Inook, if you gave this presentation 10 years before, I would totally agree with you. But for example, the Korean education system is kind of in a reforming stage right now, and we're trying to get the pros of the German or the Netherlands education system, and it's kind of turning into a good way. We're trying to implement more of a divergent thinking in our education system. So do you think it is really important to classify historical, it's kind of the same Miss Pearson asked, it's do you think it's important to classify the historical and the educational, because it's kind of getting mixed up right now?
Oh, you're asking if culture and history are important for the formation of the education?
Yeah, basically.
Okay, I mean, it is true that right now the Korean government is trying to implement a lot of changes because they know what's wrong with the education system right now. They're trying to incorporate more of divergent thinking kind of system, and that is true. But I feel the culture and history are still going to be there. I mean, there are not that many schools in Korea right now that focus on this type of education, divergent thinking. If you look at the majority of schools right now, they actually a lot of culture and a lot of history actually affected how they are right now, and I feel it's going to take a lot of time for them to actually change their thinking process. So even though they're trying to implement right now, it's going to take a lot of time.
Great. In the interest of time, thank you very much, Inook. Move on to Jesus.